Welcome to another episode of Dad Up, everyone. Thank you guys very much for joining me. I'm really excited for the guest that I have on, coming in all the way from Toronto, Canada. But he's got quite a story. He's got a phenomenal brand that we're going to get into, and I'm excited that he has joined me on the episode. Mike Whitla, welcome to the show, brother.
Thanks, Brian. Thanks for having me on.
Awesome. I'm excited for this conversation because I love what you're doing. I love kind of the message that you're sending out there for families, for kids. It's what this show is all about. So, for my guests who may not know who you are, let's dive into a little bit of back history of you, kind of how you grew up, and then kind of how you got started and the things you're going through, and then obviously the stuff that you've gone through recently as well.
I guess I've been a musician for my whole professional career, and a bunch of years ago, I got into doing music with kids. My wife saw an ad for something and said, "Hey, I think you'd be really good at that." So I started working with kids, and I started a company called Rainbow Songs. That company does music programs with little kids. And then as a kind of offshoot of that, I had this really amazing manager who gave me all this free time. And I wrote this a record. I thought my kids were really into dinosaurs. Little kids always get into dinosaurs. And I thought, where are all the great dinosaur songs? And they just didn't seem to be a lot of them around. So started writing dinosaur songs. And then I wrote this little song about an egg. And then I thought, wait a second, this could be the beginning of a story. So I sketched out a little story and then just started writing songs. And those songs became my first dinosaur recording called Dinostory, the Ultimate Dinosaur Rock Opera, which is about a bunch of eggs that are laid, and then one of them rolls away, and then it hatches out, and it doesn't have its family. So it's trying to figure out how it fits in the world. And it's its story kind of its story of search for belonging. And I was really pleased with the record. I thought this is probably the best thing I've ever written. And I thought that it should have another platform. So eventually, after looking into what it would cost to do it on stage, and millions of dollars for robots and stuff seemed to be not the way to go. So I started animating the stuff and putting it up on YouTube, and it started blowing up. And then the first video that hit 1 million views, and then I started writing, well, there's interest in this, so I started writing more songs in the story, and then also some other songs that were just fun songs about dinosaurs that weren't necessarily part of the story, but the story kind of continues. And it's actually a little baby triceratops that it's the one with 3 horns, and it has this kind of blended family that it ends up finding. It finds a stegosaurus and some other plant-eating dinosaurs, and they have this kind of an odd family that starts taking care of each other. And so I did a whole second season of it, and all those videos got really popular, and we started translating the stuff into Portuguese and Spanish. And I'm amazed, some of the songs with me singing in Spanish have more views in Spanish than they do on the English versions. It's crazy. So, and for me, it's amazing that I'm now reaching more people every day via YouTube and Spotify and all the other various streaming platforms than I reached with like the first 40 years of my life. It's every day. So it's been really great finding an audience. And I'm really excited to have my oldest son. I have 2 sons, Jake and Kyle. Jake is 20 and Kyle is 17. And he's written a song called The Kraken. It's a new series we're working on called Mythologica. So we're taking stuff. We have another one coming that we're working on called Cyclops, which is about Ulysses and his experience with the Cyclops. And those ones are coming out soon. Well, actually, The Kraken's out now. So I'm super, and I think it's an amazing song. He's done an awesome job on it. And to have him working with me it's really awesome.
Oh, that's cool. Go ahead.
That's me. That's what's been kind of going on with me professionally. I know that my family has had a really rough time. We've been a really tight family for a long time. Uh, but in late 2019, my wife died by suicide. Uh, and she had been sick, I guess, for, it was a very short period of time. We were like such a tight, super uh, bonded family, and it's amazing how quickly things can change. And it's just sent us for, uh, it's just completely changed our lives and our perspective on life. Um, it's been a really difficult time for us. Uh, but in some ways, we are tighter than we've ever been. I know the one of the first things that I said to the boys is that we have to be open with each other, which is one of the reasons that, you know, I'm open to talking about this kind of stuff. Is part of the thing that's the biggest problem is the silence. People that are suffering from mental illness, they suffer by themselves. So many people had no idea that Lisa was suffering. She had difficulty telling me what she was feeling. And when people are having suicidal thoughts, it's it's difficult to tell. Is how can you tell the people that you love this?
Mm.
It's so you're suffering alone, and to so I think, and she lost both her sisters to suicide as well.
Mm.
So I lost all three of them. Uh, so it's something. It was always really difficult for her to talk openly about it. So much stigma around it, and we've experienced a lot of because people don't know what to say. People try to fix what's wrong with you, uh, and there's no fixing it. There's nothing wrong with us. We're suffering.
Mm-hmm.
It's just something we have to go through.
Mm.
So that's where we're at personally. We're coming up. It's a difficult time of year for us because we're coming up to the anniversary. It's the third anniversary coming up. And I talk about it as being, it's not something that you ever get over. It's something that you learn to carry with you. It's
Wow.
kind of how that.
Wow. Well, first of all, my apologies and sympathy goes out to you and your boys for that experience that you guys have had to navigate through. Um, I do know that I've had guests on my show. I had another guest on my show whose husband died by suicide, and he was a pastor of a church. And she said kind of the same thing. It's just not something that you get over. It's just something you have to kind of work through as a family. And she had three young boys, very young boys. Um,
Uh,
so I'm sorry that you guys have gone through that. Um, and my prayers to you guys for this continued healing process, because I know it'll be a journey for you guys. But you staying resilient as a father to those boys and being close to them, and as you had alluded to, that continuing to be open with them and have them be open with you is super important. I know that mental health is a big issue, especially now, more so over the last couple of years, dealing through this thing that the world has gone through in the pandemic. You guys had experienced that just before the pandemic, and then you had to experience, obviously, the downturn of the world with this epidemic of this disease. So I do feel, I am sorry that you guys gone through that. It's really tough. And if there's anything that I can do, just kind of a sidebar, if there's anything I can do for you guys, let me know. Even if it's just a simple prayer, I have no problem, praying for you guys and doing those things. So, thank you for sharing that. Thank you for sharing that, Mike. I know that's tough. As a dad, experiencing that. How did you navigate that with your boys, other than just kind of talking them through it? What if there's a parent out there? Let me ask you this: if there's a parent out there that maybe a husband or wife that's experiencing that, or maybe a loss of a child, what advice would you give to other parents?
It's difficult because one, I think the thing is that you want to, if you think someone is having suicidal thoughts, I think you got to be direct with them. You've got to, put it in those terms. It was so difficult for Lisa to say anything. And I didn't really understand it. She couldn't make me understand it. And it's funny because I feel like the person I am now would be better able to deal with it, of course. Because it's given me all this horrible insight. One of the things that I've always been it made me understand the loss that she had. Like, I felt the losses of her sisters. I knew Lisa since I was 8 years old.
Oh, wow.
Her family and my family, she was Jewish, and I come from a Christian background. I'm not religious myself, but my father is a priest. And we celebrated Passover with them, and they would come they'd come over to Christmas dinner at our place growing up. So I knew all of them so well, such wonderful people. But unfortunately, as we know, trauma creates more trauma. It's hard to say like what causes all these things, but being direct and talking and getting help, the help it's difficult. Also, Lisa was so smart. All her sisters were so smart, that if you can outsmart the psychiatrists, you're outsmarting yourself, but it's difficult to get help that way. It's being direct and talking about it and being open about things. Like, I know I cry a lot. I've cried a lot in front of my kids, and some people, I think for men to be able to be more comfortable doing that, it's not a sign of weakness. It's a sign of strength to be able to show the inside of you. And it's hard for kids. Like, Kyle was 14 when this happened. Mm. And to have to go back to school in his first year of high school, I guess for you guys, is that like freshman? What do you call the first year of high school?
Freshman, yeah, freshman.
We have different terms for this in Canada, but like, they don't understand a death of a parent. Most kids, like, you don't understand these things until it happens to you. And suicide is just so complicated. I've lost people to cancer. It's funny because I'd go to like widows groups, and we'd go around and everyone would tell their story, and it would be cancer, 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 cancer. And then someone would start telling their story, and I would, the first group, and I realized that they were a suicide as well. And it's weird. I kind of got excited about it. It's like, all right, someone who understands what I'm going through a little. They weren't really ready to. They were having such a tough time. They came. Her background was Vietnamese, and I think culturally for them, the family was saying it was a heart attack. Because of the shame of suicide. Like, that I think under Catholicism, it's a sin and you go to hell. I don't know if they've changed that. In old Jewish law, you wouldn't be able to be buried in a Jewish cemetery if you died by suicide. That's changed now. This doesn't help people to put this kind of shame on them about about this kind of suffering, and the family that they have to live with that after, right? To not be able to have their loved ones resting in the same cemetery, you know?
Mhm.
And I think it's, you know, so many of I lost a lot of friends. A lot. And it's funny when you were talking about the pandemic. When the pandemic came, I know our suffering was so intense. It was almost welcome, the
Mhm.
pandemic. It was like, okay, the rest of society is suffering a little bit now, we felt like. And I know people were suffering a lot and people were dying, but we were experiencing that, you know? And it also meant that the schools got shut down and I had my boys around me all the time.
Right.
We were happy about that. We got to work converting the gym and the garage into a gym. We built an Olympic lifting platform. Another buddy of mine. It's funny the people that step up too. Like all this, like it's not really good. It's like it's like a calling of family and friends. There's the people that just, I think, out of not knowing what to say, and you don't have to say anything. You just have to witness the person suffering, just to be with them. You don't have to say anything. You just have to me, that's like, there's a lot of people, they want to do something for you or do something to help you get better. But really what you need is just someone to listen to you and your story, and you don't have to say anything. That's what I needed. I know maybe other people need something else, but to just be listened to is so important. And yeah, so like one of the guys so we were building the garage, and one of this guy, just a kid, 20, I thought he was 30 because he had a big full beard. And I used to do Olympic weightlifting. And he was my coach, and they were changing the equipment at the Y. And he calls me up. He said, Mike, they've got these squat racks and they're getting rid of them. They can't sell them. You know, want me to load one in my car for you. So he loaded the squat rack in the car and brought it over. And man, like he'd be over and then I said, you know, how old are you? And he goes, 23. He goes, good Lord, you were 1 year old when I got married to Lisa. You know? And I was like, and the guy, and I'd be bawling. Someone would call like while we're lifting, and I'd just start crying. And he didn't say anything. He just stood by me. And man, like it's tearing me up just thinking about it. I have to thank him for it. I haven't caught him at the gym. Like, and this was like when the pandemic was on and the Y was all shut down. And yeah, he had come over and brought this over, and we lifted together. It was great because physical exercise, you know, was really getting us through it. And then, yeah, we winterized the garage. And it was great to have a project. And it also meant we got out of the house. We were in the house, and I have a big house, and it's got a big backyard. So it's like you had to walk across the backyard and go into the garage to work on it. So it's like you still felt like you were going somewhere. And you know, so working on that project together, Jake and I did all the work on it pretty much. And then it was funny, Kyle's the guy who got into doing the lifting. So he's been, and so for him, he kind of has to do it all the time because he knows it makes him feel better. He's kind of more bottled up emotionally. Getting therapists for everybody is completely key. Making sure that they can be comfortable talking. I know this is like, I don't know what people do that don't have the resources that I have. You know, that we just leave people, like there's no free therapy for people. Like calling up, I can imagine like, you know, Lisa getting the best therapist we can have, and they weren't doing her any help. I can't imagine what it's like for people that don't have the same resources that I have. Like we're good at advocating for ourselves in the mental health care system. We're like, I know that you guys hear some myths about our healthcare system, like that we have this amazing all-inclusive healthcare system up in, communist Canada, but that's not quite the reality up here. So, it's like, I remember when I was younger, I could go to the doctor for free, and then he'd say, oh, here's what you need. And then I'm allergic to penicillin. And so it would be some other kind of antibiotic. And I'd say, oh, it's $200 to get this thing fulfilled. So I would just not get it when I was younger. And as a starting out musician, so I can get they tell me what I need, but I can't pay for what I need. Right. But on the other hand, you got cancer, it's covered here 100%. But mental health care, it's not covered. And I remember one of Lisa's friends early on, when it happened so fast, Bryan, it was just crazy. Like we joked that I picked the right sister. I got the sane one, right? Because the other two were dead at that point. Like Jen died before we were married, Lisa's middle daughter. And when we got back from our honeymoon, that's when Becca Jane died. And yeah, we always said, oh, so, I got the sane one. But then it was August. Like we were in California for VidCon, which is big YouTube conference, and everything was normal then. She was sleeping great. We had a good conference, and this is in July 2019. Everything normal, and then by the end of August, she's not sleeping. It was like in a 1 week, 2 week period, because I was seeing a therapist at the time, just because I would get chronically burnt out, because running YouTube and creating a kind of little kids music empire is exhausting. So I'd work really, really hard all the time, and then I'd get burnt out. So I was in therapy just to figure out a better path through that. And so the first couple of therapies were about me, but then everything was about Lisa after that, because it just turned on a dime. It's you don't know what happens. It's like something got turned on in her brain or something like that.
Mm. Wow. You talk a lot about various things in what you just said there, but one of the things that I want to hit on is the importance of connecting with your boys, and the fact that you guys kind of set up this gym in the garage, kind of gave you guys a chance to connect. It's funny, I had dads through the pandemic that reached out to me and said, my kids can't go outside and play, they can't go see their friends, but I can't get them off these darn video games either. I want to figure out something else for them to do. And I would tell them, why are you trying to get them off the video games? They can't do anything else, they can't go see their friends. Why don't you play video games with them?
Yeah,
why don't you have them teach you how to play the video game that they're playing? And
or play old games.
Yeah,
play old games and kick their asses.
Right. Right, exactly. So I just tell them, I said, you know what, enjoy that bonding time with them, because I looked at the pandemic. Yes, scary. A lot of people went through just horrible things, lost, losing a family member to it, to COVID and all that. But I saw it as a chance for us to reconnect with our families. And we run such busy lives, like you're talking about running the YouTube show. It took a lot of your time, but the pandemic allowed us to reconnect as a family and find things together as a family that we can share and talk about and do things together within the house. And you doing that with your boys, building the gym and all that, to help you work through not only some of the issues you guys were going through together as a family, but also, the fact that you guys couldn't really do anything else, is a testament to the dad that you are and the kind of leader that you want to be for your boys. So that's awesome.
We also, the other thing that we do, a couple days after Lisa died, Kyle played the drums, but he stopped playing the drums. Jake plays saxophone, guitar, piano, and bass. He's quite the musical force, and I think it's been hard for Kyle to find a musical place in the family. Lisa played bass, so we would once a week we would have a little family, like another drummer would come over and play with us. Kyle wasn't part of that. Kyle, a couple days after Lisa died, picked up the guitar. And it's difficult sometimes to learn from your dad, especially if what your dad is like super passionate about, right? No, you're doing that wrong there. You gotta hold your finger, like, no, come on, you gotta be serious about this, right? And but we had this moment where I was teaching him some basic chords, and we kind of realized at the same time how happy it would have made Lisa to see us finally cooperating musically, because it had always been a problem for us. It had always been something that was, that was the joke is like, you're going to study music with dad, there's going to be tears eventually, right? I think it's inevitable, but we were getting along so well, and that's continued. He wants to now audition for jazz programs on guitar. It's got a lot to learn, but man, he has learned so much. And now it was the drummer. This guy, one of the guys that's really stuck by me is my friend Chris, who comes by, and that was the other thing that kept us through the pandemic. I don't know what they did where you were, but we had this thing when it was the early part of the pandemic and people were dropping like flies. We had they said that you could have a bubble, 10 people that you see. And so Chris was this guy, a non-family member that we brought in. He was our drummer. And he said, why doesn't Kyle play with us? He's playing, because Jake switched to bass. Lisa played bass. And so I started playing bass and Jake playing guitar, but Jake was just terrible on the guitar. So I switched back to guitar and Jake played bass. And then he said, let's get Kyle to play. So Kyle started playing with us. And it was just hilarious at first. Like he'd come in and just not know the song and just start jumping around and stuff. But this has been something, it's funny, man, because I remember when I was a teenager, I was never home on Friday and Saturday night. It's been so weird, but we just hang out together all the time. We're super tight. And the other thing we did is we wanted a dog, and we were going to get a dog when Lisa got better. On the day that Lisa died, I said, we're going to get a dog. Wait, let me see. This way. See the dog?
Oh, yeah.
That's one of the dogs. That's Luna. And boy, she changed our life. And it meant that, well, when Lisa died, Lisa's mom, Karen, had a dog, Kaya. And basically she moved in with us for 9 months. From that day, like, man, it's weird thinking about that day. But yeah, everybody was around me in the bed. Her dog was there, Karen was there, my family was there, just all of us on the bed, just kind of holding on to each other. But so that dog, Karen, died too. A few weeks, about 2 months ago. She died suddenly. She didn't die by suicide, which is a blessing. But she died suddenly. We hadn't heard from her in a couple of days. The kids usually get a text, and Jake would get a picture of Kaya, her dog. And so I started to get a funny feeling about it. And Jake actually was the one who found her. So that re-traumatized us. It's called compound trauma.
Yeah.
And it sent me down a deep hole. But we have Kaya now too. We have 2 dogs. And that when we got Kaya, like, well, when I say we, I mean the family got Kaya and Karen got Kaya. Karen is Lisa's mom. The people that she's a rescue dog. And the deal was, you gotta take care of this dog if something happens to Karen. And I said, of course, I'll take care of that dog if something happens to Karen. And that's what's happened. So now Kaya's not up here right now, but we have, it's been quite the handful having 2, though apparently it's not twice as much work having 2 dogs, because you can walk them both at the same time. They get along pretty well. And having two dogs is, it's great having the unconditional love of dogs.
Yeah.
And it's been so good for the kids. And they're awesome. The deal was we'll get a dog, but you each have to commit. Can get this. I said 3 morning walks a week each. And do you think they're doing it?
I don't know. That's a mixed question because there's some kids that are, you know.
They're doing it.
Oh,
They're
good.
doing it. I have the most awesome kids. Yeah, they're totally doing it. And right now, we're planning on going to Costa Rica on the 23rd because the anniversary, Lisa died on the 26th of December.
Oh,
So
man.
we're not the biggest Christmas family anymore. I was never been a big, like, the gift giving is not something I've ever been into. Like, I've always been on the other end of that in that I used to be when I was a teenager, I've always worked for myself. I've always been an entrepreneur. When I was a teenager, I started up a t-shirt business. So I saw the panic of people buying. And so I'd be selling this stuff and just like making piles and piles of money. I'd be like, these people, they just got a list in their hand and they're just buying whatever they can find. And I know it fuels the economy and everything, but it seems like there's a better way to do things. And the better way to do things, in my opinion, is just to be with your family and thankful for those things and have, and it's the getting together with people. That's what I cherish. Like, I'd give away all my riches to have Lisa back.
Yeah.
It's not, there's no question. So yeah, we're planning on going away, and Kyle's just has come down with COVID.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah. So he's sequestered in the basement right now. So I sent the one dog down to hang out with him. So we unfortunately have a good house for I'm testing negative. Jake's testing negative. But the last time we had it took 15 days to get each one of us to get infected, right? Because of the incubation period.
Right.
And I don't want to be super sick on vacation. So yeah. So now that's added another layer of complexity to life right now. And poor Kyle. Kyle's the one I'm like he's the baby. So yeah, we went out for a walk. Like he masks when he's going outside. And we can go, now he's just desperate to walk the dogs because it's something to do. So he's doing all the dog walking, but I'm going with him in the morning. So I went with him in the evening last night too, because he's not getting much contact now. It's really hard.
All right. Well, I'm sorry. I hope he gets better. I hope none of you guys get it, so you guys can at least enjoy the serenity of Costa Rica while you guys celebrate Lisa's life, and not so much her passing, but her life. So that's great. I do hope that happens for you guys.
It's gonna happen. It's gonna happen.
Good. That's good. You guys need it for sure. I do want to kind of shift gears because I know we're talking
Sure.
about a lot of things that you guys have gone through over the last couple of years. But I want to shift gears because I want to talk about your music and the YouTube channel, because this is something that kids need. There's so much out there that kids shouldn't be viewing on YouTube. And the fact that you have, kind of this program, these videos that kids can watch and listen to and enjoy the songs. I'm sure they drive parents crazy because they're listening to the same song over and over again in the car. But that's part of the fun of having kids and letting them enjoy life, because life hits them on the chin when they become adults, right? So
For sure.
what inspired you to really start these kind of videos and these songs? I know you said you wrote that one song and it was kind of a hit, but what kind of led to that inspiration?
It felt like there was a bit of a void in that area. Like I've never I had done a bunch of kids recordings already that were kind of more in the early childhood education area. But I always wanted to do, because I'd worked as a regular professional musician in the regular, adult world, and I'd done a lot of teaching. I'd done a lot of guitar teaching, and then worked with young kids, And when I came to this, I always wanted to do the music part of it the same as I do music for anybody. Music, you know, there have all these studies about, you know, classical music's effect on the brain, and other kinds of music do too. I know jazz does, and even some progressive music, metal and things like that actually really stimulate your brain and are amazing outlets. I know I like a wide variety of music, but I do like loud guitars. And and I know that both my kids do too. Jake kind of is also into a lot of other stuff. He's the real jazz man in the house. He plays jazz amazingly. But Kyle loves heavy music, and it's got him through so many difficult things. And I think I've done a lot of that stuff in the kids area. Like I did a record called Heavy Metal Dinosaur Songs. And it's the same kind of music I'd make if I was making it for in fact, when you release songs on Spotify, you pitch a song to them. So I pitched the songs to them, hoping it's going to get on the Spotify Dinosaur Songs playlist, which exists, but they put it on the regular hard rock playlist, like this with AC/DC and, you know, the latest releases from you know, and you know, it's like, whoa. So 2 of our songs got put on the regular Spotify editorial hard rock playlist, and which is to me a testament. And when I listened, it was great because I could put it on the playlist and compare how our track would hit compared to what is happening in hard rock now. And man, when you listen to them next to each other, sonically, we're very competitive. And cool. Musically, I think we're competitive, or sometimes even better. So, and like you talk about people getting driven crazy. Like I get so many parents reaching out to me and thanking us, like, you know, parents that maybe are into heavy music too. It's funny because the music we've got has a lot of other kinds of music. Like in the Dinosaur Rock Opera, there's jazz, there's kind of poppy tunes in there, there's some kind of banjo-y, folky stuff. But the ones that people have latched onto are the loud ones. And I think it's because that doesn't really exist in that idiom. And we're providing something for families that are into that sort of thing. And it's also a gateway for people to get into other stuff. So, and I know how this kind of music has stimulated my mind, and how difficult it is to play this kind of music. And I think that's kind of my motivation, and just to make the kind of music that I would make for anybody. But the messages are also, and I also include stuff. I remember this one song that came out. I was working with a YouTube manager at the time, and it's the second or third song on the first record. It's called "Do You Know Who I Am?" So the little baby triceratops is hatched out of her egg, and she's imploring the universe, do you know who I am? Do you know what I am? She's having an existential crisis. And, you know, it looks into the mirror and sees itself, and tears fall down. And then, so I was getting these comments. This is back when you could put comments on kids' videos, of people saying, you know, my daughter is crying and crying when they watch this video. And I thought, oh no, this is terrible. And so I talked to my manager, and he said to me, Mike, this is amazing. This person is connecting with your story in a very human and honest way. And you're providing, and then it's funny, I would get that comment, and then the person came back and commented again a few weeks later and said, thanking me. Because the first time they were kind of upset, and the second time they said, I appreciate it. I think my child is working through some trauma through this song. And I was like, I guess this is after, of course, Lisa's sisters had died, but this is, you know, ages before any of that had happened. And I was working, and then later on in the story, they're battling the new blended family are battling some velociraptors, and there's some quicksand, and Terry, the heroine of the story, is stuck in the quicksand, and the Stegosaurus character goes into the quicksand and puts her head down so Terry can escape walking on top of her, and then the stegosaurus sinks into the quicksand and dies.
Mm.
And I was nervous about it. Was funny because I was working on this video when Lisa was suffering. So it's a pretty personal thing for me. I'd written this song, like it takes usually about a year to put each one of the songs and videos together. Like some of them will be in various forms of production, but from beginning to end, it can be, some songs are years to complete.
Wow.
But and then, again, I think it was something, and I was interested to see what the feedback would be from that song. And again, it was some people were upset, like, how could you kill this character? But many of them were also, hooray for Steggy for saving Terry, and what a hero. And I think it's important for us not to, and it's so funny because Disney used to be this way too, right? Like the beginning of, and you remember what happens at the beginning of Bambi. Mm-hmm. Bambi loses its mother, right? The little child loses its mother. And that's a story for every child that's lost their mother.
Right.
And like, I didn't realize that, like, I was making stories for, to help people that my own kids are going to need too, right? So whenever I encounter others, and that was the thing that, and I know how that helps people because that's what's helped me. It's funny how it comes back around to this, but connecting to other people that have lost their spouses through suicide has been kind of what's helped me through it. Those people, to see that they're further along than I am, and that there is a path forward, that there can be love again, there can be happiness again. You don't think those things are even possible at first. Yeah. But I think that my music is doing that for people, and some of it's just, of course, just fun stuff, right? But also to have stuff in there that is real. And so that real from a musical perspective, as well as real from a human perspective, from a storytelling perspective. It's how I think it's the only way that I can operate, I think, is to do things honestly.
Yeah, well, I mean, obviously it's resonating. You've gotten over 1 billion views. You've got, a million subscribers on YouTube. Clearly it's resonating. And I think that, when you're talking about the heavy metal side of the music and the kids really enjoying it, kids are energetic. They just want to jump and run and play and bounce off the walls. And so I think that just kind of helps them kind of get that energy out.
It's an outlet, right?
Yeah. And, I think about, music is a healing tool. It's something that we need to help navigate. I think about when I'm frustrated, I like to go for a run. I like to run. And, if I'm frustrated or having a stressful day, my wife will even tell me, you need to go for a run. You need to get out some energy, go for a run. And I'll do that. And, I've tried listening to books when I run, but it just doesn't have the same effect on me. And listening to music just kind of helps me relax and be free and enjoy what I'm doing. So music is a healing tool. And I think that's such a powerful story. And you sharing about the child crying, because obviously they were experiencing something, and you're right, they were connecting with the story. And that's the whole point of it, is the connection that kids need with not only music, but the message behind the words and the sound and the images that they see. So I just commend you in the process and the journey that you've gone through to create this, essentially this brand that is helping families that may be struggling in various areas. The fact that you're putting the stories behind different experiences that may have happened or occurred, that somebody can relate to, is remarkable. I think it's such a cool story, and I think it's such a cool thing that you're doing. I do hope that you're continuing it and continuing the story or different stories within the brand. what is your end goal? What's your hope for this? Guess this this journey that you're on with this Howdytoons and the dinosaur brand. What's your goal for parents?
My goal for parents?
Yeah, in listening to this music and the videos for their kids.
Enriching their lives with music. It's funny, sometimes people talk about, like, the math music connection, but I'm a strong believer in just music making you more musical is a wonderful end goal in itself, right? That if it turns you on to other music, I really do view ourselves as a gateway drug to other musics. Like, I think of the kids that grow up listening. I'm sorry, but a lot of pop music today is just too simple. It's just too, like, it can be extremely well produced, and the musicians can be extremely talented. There are exceptions. I think of someone like Bruno Mars. He's a fantastic musician, and some of his music had some depth to it. But a lot of stuff that people hear, it's super, super easy to consume. But people that have listened, and I know some of the favorite bands that I listen to, I sometimes have to listen to the record a couple of times before I can kind of deconstruct it. In a similar way that one might listen to something like Stravinsky or something like that. You can't get the Rite of Spring on the first listening. You gotta listen to that stuff a few times to process what's going on. And this is your brain making all kinds of connections. And I think that kids getting into this music, they're not going to be able to, like, I can't listen to music that isn't, in my opinion, good music. And all genres will have good music, but like, there's terrible music in all genres. But I feel like if I give kids really good music, it's going to make them seek out more good music. And I think that's my end goal, really, is to make them lifelong lovers of music. And it's really great when I have people reaching out to me. It's funny too, some people reach out about our family story too, and I've connected with a lot of people that way as well. But it happens all the time, people just being so thankful for, saying thank you for making this kind of music. We haven't found this anywhere else. It's a niche product, and I think it's also something that, like, it's been a slow and long growth for us. And we're continuing to grow. But I think that's part of if you're making something that's a little bit more difficult to digest, it's going to grow a little bit more slowly, but the growth is going to be sustainable, and it'll continue on. Like, if that makes any sense.
Yeah, no, I think you're right. I think it's great that the message that you're sharing, with parents, with kids, um, will really help them to not only grasp good music, but seek, like you said, seek other types of music out there. And the fact that you're a musician and can kind of dissect different songs and music, and having to listen to maybe an album a few times before you really grasp the meaning behind it. I think about that. I'm a huge Eagles fan, and I think about some of the songs that I've heard, that I listened to when I was a kid, that I listen to now and go, wait a minute. I listen to the words and I go, wait, that doesn't mean that. That means something completely different. And I have to
I mean, a really good song means something different to you in each stage of your life.
yeah,
What's that? Remember that John Cougar? What was that one? Jack and Diane.
yeah,
That means something really different when you're older.
right, right. Yeah.
Holding
So
on to 16 as long as you can, right? It means something when you're 16, but it means something really different when you're 54.
yeah, and that's what's cool about behind the really gifted talent in the musicians, the artists that come up with these songs. So I commend you for what you're doing, and I'm glad to see that this is out there for families and for kids. It's so remarkable that there are people out there like you that are really trying to spread love through music. because you don't get a lot of that now. A lot of the music, like you said, out there, some of it's just junk. And, sometimes our kids pick up the wrong type of music that just sends the wrong message. And the fact that you're sending the right message through your music is awesome. Mike, if my listeners want to look you up, learn a little bit more about you, best places for them to do that.
You can go to howdytoons.com, HOWDYTOONS.com. It has links to everything, but you can just search us on YouTube or Spotify. Just a Google search should, bring us up, no problem. On YouTube, we've got a few different channels. We've got it in Spanish, Portuguese. We also have a Howdytoons Extreme channel, which is stuff that's kind of for more older kids, I would say, teenagers and stuff like that. We're just starting to work on stuff. The main Howdytoons channel is all the stuff is made for kids, and you can find all that stuff on the YouTube Kids app too. So if you want, that's part of the issue. Is there's so much stuff on YouTube. They have the YouTube Kids app, but it's been a big problem. It's kind of a side topic, but yeah, that's the best places to find us.
All right, cool. Well, I'll make sure I put all those links in the show notes. But Mike, it's been an absolute pleasure getting to meet you virtually and hear the kind of stuff that you've not only gone through, but also your story and the stuff that you're doing now and have been doing for families. So I appreciate you for being on the show, my friend.
Thank you, Bryan. It's been a pleasure talking to you. Thanks so much for having me.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, listen, guys, this has been another episode of Dad Up. Thank you guys very much for joining me. Please check out what Mike is doing at howdytoons.com. You can get everything there. You can go to his YouTube channel. His YouTube channel is phenomenal. Make sure you guys are subscribing to his YouTube channel. Check out the music. Let your kids listen to it. Let them know what you think. Send them a rating or review. Let them know what you think as well. But as always, I appreciate my guest, Mike, being on the show. And don't forget to subscribe to my YouTube channel, also my podcast, anywhere you get your podcasts, so you don't miss any of the awesome guests that I have on each and every week, like Mike. So thank you guys very much for joining me on another episode of Dad Up. Wow, another amazing episode in the books. So much was shared, and I'm truly grateful my guest was able to pour into you to help you elevate your dad game and really dad up. Make sure you bang that subscribe button so you don't miss a single episode. And while you're here, please don't forget to leave me a rating and a review. I always appreciate the feedback. And one last thing, don't forget, your role as a dad is one of the most important roles you have. So if you need a little help or have questions, don't hesitate to reach out to me on my website at daduptribe.com or at my Instagram page at Dad Up Podcast. Until next time, everyone, Dad Up.